with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that. Saying you the best, stop that. Phony, I am not that. Yeah. What are y'all doing out here?
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. 1020, 1580 AM, 105.1, 93.1 FM, Triple Play Sports Radio app. Tons of different ways you can be listening in. Thanks for spending some time with us today here on Wednesday. We roll on through the week. It has been a heck of a week here in Stillwater. Patrick Wheeler here with you. Tom Dorado will be joining the show. Jason Elmquist, and at 4:30, Tom Dorado will have Where Are They Now, as always, on Wednesday. He's got Cade Cabinets coming up. There's been a lot of news surrounding him. We'll talk Tom Holliday as well. I know that'll be one of the topics we'll get into quickly as he has some new stuff going on in his coaching career, which I read the article at the beginning and I thought, wait a minute, the Tulsa Drillers just hired away Tom Holliday there. Wow, that's a pretty big deal, but not quite. As Tom joins me now, but he gets a chance here at this new type of summer league that the Tulsa Drillers are jumping in on with the Texas Collegiate League.
It's basically the Cape Cod Chatham franchise in the here Cape Cod League South.
Right, exactly. That's true.
Same coaches.
Yeah.
Same players that he would have had, and they would be underway, I don't know, probably a full month, right, in the Cape Cod League. I think this would have been Tom's third year. You know, I caught wind of this about a week and a half ago, but they were still Mike Malaga over at Tulsa, the general manager of the Tulsa Drillers in the Texas League, not the Texas Collegiate League. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they were looking for baseball. I mean, they pretty well resigned themselves to the fact that minor league baseball is probably not going to come about, although I guess if they signed a contract today and started playing major league games, maybe AA and AAA would open up. I don't know. I mean, it seems far-fetched.
It does. I would be surprised.
But at the same time, I guess they could. But this is being kicked around by members of the Texas League. Round Rock, Frisco, certainly Tulsa. I'm leaving out some Victoria.
Yeah.
You know, and people wonder about Victoria. You know, I don't remember much about it, but I was actually born in Victoria, Texas. So
really?
I got a Texas background.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's South Texas.
Tom was talking about today he was on Robert's show about how that was going to be a little bit of a
I think it's a little bit of a haul.
7-hour bus ride.
They're not jumping on any planes.
No, it's a bus ride.
But it is a good, I don't know, substitute. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth because we're going to have Cade Cabinets on.
Yep.
And Cade's one of the guys that was going to play. Well, I said was going to play. That's not true because if this were a normal year, Cade would be his eligibility would be up at Oklahoma State, and he would be assigned somewhere to play minor league ball. If this was a normal year, he would have been drafted somewhere in 35 rounds probably. So Cade is going to join us here, but he's going to – I know Tom wants to move him around just like he did Polkovich when he had him last year. And I think he wants to put Cade probably in center field, see what he can do. I
think that's what he said. Yep. That's what he said. A bunch of different players, right? That are Hewitt's one of them as well.
Huey Morrill. Morrill is he may be the best all around. You know, this is my opinion. When you start adding up people who are coming back and on the team, Huey Morrill he may not be the best, but he may be the most valuable because he does a lot of things with the bat and with the glove. But Morrill, Osmond on the mound, and Max Hewitt. The story behind the plate.
Yeah.
So Tom will have those four guys from Oklahoma State, and he'll also have some from OU, I think. Skip Johnson's probably trying to figure out what he's going to do because I think Tommy was anticipating, draft notwithstanding, that perhaps some of those pitchers that went in the first 5 rounds might have joined him in the Cape. And Tom's going to bring in a couple of guys he had last year. I think one guy from Southern Cal. I think I don't know the total roster, but it was a natural for Tom to get it because he's right here, and he will bring some celebrity to that franchise, if you will. And plus, he knows a hell of a lot about baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, so on top of that, he's a perfect fit. And the two guys, I don't know one of the coaches, but Mickey Tettleton, who had a long career in the major leagues, played here as a collegian. We've had Mickey on before. We may have him on sooner than later here in the near future. And then, of course, Randy Whistler, who's been a long-time friend of mine, and he's been over in Tulsa. And I don't know the other fella. I don't know his other coach. But it's a natural. He brought the Cape Cod South, and it's going to be a replacement league. Now, I'll be interested in this. I don't know what they'll do. Let's just say Major League Baseball today, while we're on the air, they sign a contract, okay? And they say, okay, we're going to play. Now, in the next 2 days or so, now the Major League Baseball franchises go, well, okay, we got to worry about getting our team on the field and no fans and blah, blah, blah. But what are we going to do about minor leagues? What are we going to do about that extra 20 guys that we carry? Well, we're going to have AAA maybe, okay? Maybe we're going to have AA. For Mike Malaga's sake over in Tulsa, what if tomorrow, 3 days from now, they go, well, we're going to have AA. Nothing below AA, but we're going to play AA and AAA for whatever the season's worth. And what do they do with the real Tulsa Drillers?
Yeah.
As opposed to the Texas Collegiate League Tulsa Drillers.
Yeah.
Be a nice problem to have, but I don't know. That may be a pipe dream.
Yeah.
I was just going to say there is a stadium in Oklahoma that's minor league quality that doesn't have a minor league team or a college team currently playing on it.
The one that has never been played in.
Yeah, this I think they call it
It starts with an O.
O'Brate Stadium, I think is what it's called. Yeah,
They wouldn't let anybody but OSU baseball bring that in, right?
I would bet. I don't know if
there was enough money involved. If there was enough money involved, would they?
No, I don't think so. I think
don't know.
They want to have Oklahoma State University.
Yeah.
Cowboys players open up that stadium
even with all the stress of the pandemic and on the financial aspects of the university right now. If they came out with a 7-figure number, you really think OSU would say no?
I think that'd be a pipe dream because they can hardly come to grips having a major league team go somewhere, much less come up with 7 figures anywhere else.
Yeah.
No, I would think that would not be the case, but at the same time. It'd be a nice dream, but I'm glad for Tommy.
Yeah,
and he's a heck of a coach. He was when he was here as an assistant and a head coach. He's been around the block, and he was very successful in Cape Cod League. And basically, he's got his own roster, minus some of these Cowboys. So, long story short, I think he's excited about it. I haven't talked to him since this came out, but I'm sure he's excited about getting back there in the dugout.
Yeah, we put his interviews on the YouTube page today, and. He talked a lot about it with Robert and is pretty excited to get it going, especially with those names that we mentioned, coaching and players. And it'll be interesting to watch. I know a lot of, let's hope that fans are allowed to attend these games when it comes around. There's going to be a lot of people coming into Tulsa to watch those games. So
yeah, I don't know if we've heard anything here in Oklahoma as far as capacity for. Obviously, they're opening stuff up for the Trump rally in Tulsa. But and that's an indoor facility, so I'm assuming that if you're allowing that, then I think the Drillers have an argument to say, hey, we should be able to hold at least a couple thousand people in this outdoor facility.
They have an argument. Oklahoma State has an argument to come out and say we can do it too. And that's why, another good thing to point out, like you said, they're happening in Oklahoma. That's this Saturday, by the way, right? So
that is correct. Saturday.
They're going to have the big rally, tons and tons of people planning on showing out.
In the face of adversity in terms of support. I mean, there's a number of health / politicians who don't want this to happen. You probably can see both sides of the fence, but at the same time, I mean, if you go to this thing, the risk of taking it out of the building.
That's what it's going to end up being. I still stand by it for college stadiums. It's going to be the same thing in terms of, you guys can come in the stadium, but hey, at your own risk, assume it.
kind of divert away from baseball real quick. We're getting some OSU baseball breaking news over the past couple minutes. First up, Chris Harris Jr. is announcing he is returning to the program next year. Tweeted that out about 12 minutes ago.
Hopefully his knee will be in good enough shape to do so.
Right. But then Cody Nagel from GoPokes.com just reporting, according to a source, Hedy Rusink is in the transfer portal.
Well, Jordan and I were just talking about this. Should have followed up on it, but see, Hedy went back home when this happened. And I think a lot of people were thinking within the program that maybe Hedy would try to play international ball, while he was home, and maybe not come back. Hedy didn't get a whole lot of, because he got hurt as well. I mean, and whether it wasn't a crippling injury as much as it was a mental strain on him. He hurt his knee. I think he felt like it maybe was hurt more than it was, and Hedy never really did turn it loose again after he got that knee hurt. He was a, quote, big man, so then that's two big men who are now in the portal.
And leaves you with just two returning, and that's the Boone twins, and then only two in your recruiting class coming in. So technically you only have four, quote-unquote, big men, forward/center. Actually, you don't have a center, period.
Well, Caleb's the only big man in the Boones.
Right, and Caleb officially announcing today that he is staying.
Well, there's no question about that. I mean, I think the ones who have said that they weren't, and you're going to hear, and I'm going to keep repeating this, in the next day or so, you're going to hear Cade Cunningham say, I'm coming to Oklahoma State, period, end of story. Basically, don't bug me anymore. I'm coming to Oklahoma State. I think the ones who have left, I think Yor was a little bit of a surprise to me, but not a great surprise, because as the year went on, I think in Yor's mind, his role changed a bit. And Yor is one of the greatest shot blockers we've ever had here.
Finished 8th all time in just two seasons.
And, what was he? He probably was average, 3-4 a game at best, even on a bad night?
He finished with a total of 145. So, I mean, averaged over roughly 60 games, yeah.
Now, as far as, and he did throw in a 3 or 2 every once in a while, which everybody went, wow. But, but let's just be nice. I mean, Yor's not a three-point shooter, okay? And Yor's ability to score conventionally wasn't that great. But I'll tell you, part of his game that gets overlooked, and I probably need to get the stats. I don't have his season stats. I mean, his career stats. But Yor did a good job of creating contact and getting to the free throw line. And when he got there, he was pretty good at the free throw line. And I'm going to say this without looking here. But he shot 70% last year in the season from the free throw line. And I think coaches wanted him to create a little bit more contact havoc, and get to the free throw line. Now, don't create the fouls that you're sitting out. That's the fouls. We want guys to foul you.
Yeah.
But he was good from the free throw line. But as far as an established throw it to the low post and let him do some work with his back to the basket, drop step, angle, I think, to be honest, I think Caleb was better at that as the year went on. And I know Yours had some advice from some people that, maybe you should go elsewhere. I don't think he was happy with maybe the role that he was going to play this year. But it is crazy. I mean, he played, I think he only missed 6 or 7 starts in his career here. I mean, it wasn't like
he was efficient.
Playing time was a problem.
Yeah, but at the same time, because I wanted to look at the numbers, I just pulled them up, and obviously some of this is probably due to foul trouble as well. We can always break that down as well. But going back to basically the start of, and you can even add basically after the Houston game, and so a couple of two more non-conference, and then all of the Big 12 season. Only 6 games in which he got over 25 minutes on the court.
Yeah.
So again, as you've said, and I kind of mentioned it yesterday, some guys can add up the numbers and say, hey, you got the Boones, you got these freshmen coming in that that you're high on as well. maybe my numbers are going to start shrinking a little bit, even though, you would think with a guy like McGriff leaving, that would open them up the window for maybe moving Boone over there and thus creating more opportunities for Yor. But, yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you go to it like the Texas game last year, which, again, Texas had some great big men. Only played 8 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
At Iowa State played 10 minutes. At Baylor played 8 minutes. And there's a couple times where he got over 15 minutes of action, but for the most part, later part of the season, he wasn't getting very much time on the court. And again, yeah, you probably also look and probably look at the personal fouls as being a big part of that. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot where it's four fouls fouled out and stuff like that. But even one against Kansas, where he only had one foul, he only got 16 minutes. And again, that was a Kansas team that had some good post players.
See, I've heard it said, and I don't believe this is the case, well, he's leaving because of the impending penalty. That's not true. I think, and I don't hold this against him because we know the transiency of players now. And if in his mind he did not see himself either developing the way he thought he was going to develop or be developed last year.
Right.
And B, didn't see himself playing any more, maybe even less than he did a year ago. Then we've seen players leave for less than that, right? And he does have a skill set that won't leave him in the portal long. I can't imagine that.
Yeah,
I mean, you
wouldn't think so.
One of the top shot blockers in the country, one of the top big men in the country for that reason, rebounding and shot blocking. But again, his overall offensive skills, for whatever reason, didn't come along maybe the way they should have. But I will say this. The coaches would have loved to do it again this year and see if they could develop it.
Yeah.
So if Hitty's not coming back, and that's not a surprise. I don't want to knock Hitty, but Hitty was no factor, really.
No, yeah, last year, no. Oh, and obviously it may be a mindset of, I don't want to be a defensive guy. I want to be a scorer, because that's the thing we got to keep in mind.
I think he wants to be a scorer.
Yeah, not a room for scorers.
And that's the thing. I just looked it up. During the non-conference, which, again, fewer non-conference games than conference games, he had double-digit points in 8 non-conference games.
Yeah.
Among Big 12 and the one postseason game that they got to play, 5 times in which he had a double-digit scoring. So, when it came to crunch time in the season, they kind of got away from him offensively. And again, as a guy who at AAU in high school was scoring 20 or 30 points a game because he was the biggest player on the court, that can be a shock mentally for some players. He was a guy
Boynton said too that had a case for best shooter on the team at one time too, and entering into the last season. So,
and he was a great story.
Yeah,
to some extent, a self-made player. Victor Williams said that. Victor is a former Cowboy who coached him in the AAU circuit, on the AAU circuit, and he felt like the better days were ahead for him. You know about the story about he had 2 fingers that were missing from his hand. And he had to learn to shoot with the other hand and handle the basketball. So he was a tremendous story. And by my outside looking in, I think he was a good kid. I don't think there was any problems along that line that, there was a back and forth with the coaches. I never saw that if there was. I just think in his mind, felt like he was going to be a better scorer. Maybe he didn't see himself filling that role this year. And perhaps, we all know that phone calls are made, and maybe a friend of his called and said, if you come to school A, maybe we need somebody to score down low, and there's a myriad of reasons why. But I do think he's leaving on good terms, and to some extent, some of the coaches I think are still a little stunned at his decision because they would have liked another year to work with him in the low post, and be honest, they wanted another big man. I mean, he's 6'10".
So Hitty heading out, Bryce Williams coming in, as we talked about yesterday. Caleb Boone says he's staying. Yornay says he's staying.
Cunningham staying.
Cunningham is saying, according to Tom Dorado. I'm sure that will, as you said, hopefully become official from his mouth as well in the next few days. We'll keep up on that. We have a lot to get to when we come back. We'll get Tom's opinion on Mike Gundy's apology video that actually broke in the middle of our show yesterday. We were able to kind of get it out there, I think, first to a lot of people. And we'll talk about that. We talked about Tom Holliday as well. And we have Major League Baseball news to get to as well before we get to where
another proposal, maybe an agreement.
We might be getting baseball, boys, before it's all said and done.
And if we do, I'm going to raise my hand. Nobody believed me way back when.
Well,
I don't know.
Before we go real quick, Woodruff had a question that we can probably answer real quick. The remaining players that averaged 20 minutes a game last year, would it be just Ice?
Well, let me look here. Let's see. I'll go down. The remaining guys. Ice had 32 minutes. Yor had 20. And everybody else less than 20, obviously. Laurent, Caleb, they were below 20. Yeah. Avery Anderson, Harris, and then we keep going.
So Ice is the only returning player.
That is correct.
With 20 minutes, averaging 20 minutes last year.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So you lose. I mean, I don't want to minimize this loss. I mean, sometimes that we just see guys leave in all sports say, oh, well, so be it. He wasn't very good. We'll find 10 guys better than him. That's not what I'm saying here. I think this is a huge loss,
especially on the defensive end. Yeah,
and you just don't replace guys who average 4 or 5 blocks a game.
No,
and protect the rim that way.
Yeah,
and goodness knows how many more shots he altered. Yeah. Not shot, exactly. Not blocked. He might have altered 10 more shots in the game.
It makes me think real quick going back. Michael Cobbins, the year that he got injured, how much that impacted their defense when you lost that shot altering blocker in the middle of your defense in a talent like Michael Cobbins, who in my mind during his time was even better than your defensively, maybe not shot blocking as many, but altering those shots and being able to crash on double teams, stuff like that. And when he went down, that defense just collapsed that year. So that'll be the big thing for Boynton and this defense to figure out is what do you do now that you've lost that anchor down low?
Well, that'll be a problem for them, and because Caleb is the obvious choice for the 5. But keep in mind, he only averaged 11 minutes a game last year. Yeah. He's going to have to jump up a lot.
Yeah.
And as I said to Steve this morning, much like Yor found out this year, Caleb was a novelty in the league last year. It wasn't even on a lot of people's radar. He was just a freshman trying to make his way. This year, everybody who goes against Caleb Boone knows exactly what he can do and what he can't do.
Yeah.
And coaches in this league will take away what you can do and leave you to what you can't do and see if you can do that any better.
Yeah. You're listening to the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Much more after this.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out. I've had enough of this continual rain. Changes are coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for.
Welcome back to the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. 1020 AM, 1580 AM, 105.1 FM, Triple Play Sports Radio app. Patrick Wheeler, Tom Dorado, and Jason Elmquist with you. Yesterday, Jason and I are sitting here. I think we actually tried to talk about something else for a minute, and it didn't last very long. I can't remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, we were going to, which we can hopefully get to with you, Tom, because there's some news on the Stillwater Stars for the basketball tournament.
Right, that's what it was.
We were going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Teased it going to a break, and I said, unless we have breaking news.
Fighting Brendan Manzers.
And during break, we actually did get breaking news of Gundy's video that he released yesterday.
We played it straight up on the air here as soon, 3 minutes after it was posted.
Yeah.
And I know you've seen it, Tom. We talked about it a lot yesterday, but what was your initial reaction to it?
Well, this is the second video that's come out.
Yep.
Where an explanation has been given. I think we discussed it on Robert's show. For a myriad of reasons, Gundy had to come out and apologize and say, I was wrong, and this is not the way we run things here. From a university perspective, from an athletic department perspective, from a football recruiting perspective, this had to be done. My hopes are that things will settle down a bit now that everyone's had their say. It's a slippery slope where I'm going on this thing. And let me say, what I'm about to create happens a long time ago, and a long time ago does not fit today. I'm reminded of that often by my daughters and my grandkids. That, Tom, you're way back in the caveman days, and what you're saying you can't apply today. So I'm raising my hand there. But each coach, no matter what the sport, is responsible within the framework of the university and the athletic department mission statement, is responsible for setting his or her own standards for that program. They need to be reasonable. Back in the day, they weren't reasonable. They were, Patrick, Jason, I need to talk to you here after practice. All right. Here's what we want you. Here's what we expect from you. A, B, C, D, and E. And if you said, well, coach, I don't know about, you don't have any decision. I'm just telling you, if you don't want to do A, B, C, and D, this is the expectations we set, then you're gone. Here's the door. That's the way it used to be. Should it have been that way? No, probably not. I've been on the receiving end and the giving end of that scenario. So the football program itself, they have to have their own standards that they set for their players, be it how you look, how you sound, how you act, what you say. Now, that borders on censorship. That borders on the rights of others. And perhaps that's what we're getting out of this thing now that we didn't have back in the caveman days. And coaches have to be, whether they're older or younger, or they're a man plus 10 or whatever, they have to be sensitive to today's youth and today's approach and today's voice.
And I think maybe that's part of what's different between now and then. Did you see the coaches back then speaking a lot on politics or wearing shirts promoting far right or far left politics and stuff like that?
I can remember.
So I think I think maybe that is something we have to keep in mind as part of it is, well, if our coach is allowed to express his politics and whether it's in a press setting or wearing a T-shirt, why aren't we allowed to then express ourselves with what we wear or what we listen to and stuff like that within the program? Because he's allowed to do it.
And to that, maybe you didn't see as much of it. I also believe that even back then, and maybe some today still, a lot of people, players included, probably don't, if we're being honest, don't really care what their coaches think politically. I know as fans, a lot of us don't. I mean, go in and then you're as a fan, for most people as a player, it's can you do this and this right to win us games and win us championships. I think that's what it used to be. Maybe there's a little bit more now. You have a little bit more interest in what they say and believe and everything. But I still think that's number one. At least for me, it is. I don't know about you.
And I don't want to be misleading here. I'm not saying back in the day when a coach set here's the 10 things you're gonna have to do to be part of my program.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do them, and you don't believe in them, I'm sorry, but here's the door.
Right.
Which, maybe that was the accepted way, but I'm not saying that the players, whatever his or her program was that we're talking about, didn't question, no, wait a minute. You tell me I can't wear this. You telling me I can't say this.
Yeah.
But back then, they didn't question to the point where they challenged the coach. And coaches, quite frankly, I'm generalizing, not everybody's that way. But we're not in concert with today's society like they should be now. Because you didn't have social media.
Right.
Kids, when they were pissed off at a coach for whatever reason, About the only thing they could do is get on a real phone. You guys don't even know what a real phone is, but when you have to dial.
I actually had a rotary phone growing up,
and they would get on a phone, maybe call mom, call dad, call the brother, call another friend. This coach is driving. Okay, well, all right. And I'm not saying that's the right. Believe me, don't anybody call and get on me for saying that was the right thing to do, but it was the way things were handled.
Yeah.
But you can't take those things back in the 80s and 90s and maybe the early 2000s into 2020. It doesn't work that way. And I think we're better off because it doesn't work that way. Because you can't lose sight of the fact that your players are individuals.
Yeah.
And they have their own individual passion for things.
Well, and that's what I find funny is Gundy's talking about, referencing people, players nowadays as snowflakes and stuff like that, having their own opinion and this, that, and the other, and yet, and we talked about how different that is. But did you ever have Eddie Sutton's TV show where you guys sat there and for the entire show talked about the Iraq War, or that you talked just politics, like no sports at all?
The only time we ever strayed, and we did it in a good-natured way on his radio show, but we didn't dwell on it. I mean, there's no question. Eddie was on one side of the political aisle, and I was on the other, and still am.
Right.
So we just would jab each other every once. But as far as sitting down and having a 30-minute discussion on world politics, no.
Right.
No.
And that's what's different now as well, is you got a person like Gundy, who is doing a coach that is doing that. So it's slightly. So I mean, it's funny because I think for older generations, they're like, man, the kids these days are different from when I was a kid. Well, so are the coaches. Let's be honest. Some of the coaches are also different. Gundy being as vocal as he is on politics and stuff like that. Again, I don't remember a lot growing up. I don't remember Greg Popovich, in the NBA in the 90s coming out and talking against the president and stuff like that. It's the coaches are also different. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. But it's the coaches have also evolved along with the players, and I think that's what a lot of fans maybe don't realize.
And the best way I can put it from yesterday is kind of the same way here today. I don't know what you think about this, Tom, but you want to be able to, there's a line that's drawn that you have to be able to allow your players to express themselves as human beings, but at the same time you also have an image you have to uphold as a team and a university. Now, I said yesterday maybe that line has shifted a little bit from where it used to be. So if you can manage to balance that, and it's just like, Doug Gottlieb stirred up some drama yesterday, right, with the tweet he made. With all that, and I listened to him talk about it later on his show, and he kind of brought up the whole, the demands, what he tweeted out, and said, from experience, and you have it too, if you are a female or just a booster or somebody walking around OSU and you hear insensitive music or something like that, or you see players or anybody with pants sagging, for instance, or whatever, all of a sudden the image maybe isn't what you want to portray. Is that fair?
I mean, that's where I was kind of going with this thing. There's a long way around to it. Why it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But there are standards for every program that coaches want to set, and they want their players to follow. And should it be dictatorial? No. Should it be like we used to do it? I'm the coach and you're the player. You do what the hell I tell you, and if you don't like it, take a hike. That's the way it was for a longest time. But you have to understand, though, there are ways that a university, and I'm not just talking, take it out of the athletic realm. There are ways that the university wants professors to act, instructors to act, to some extent students to act. You got to give them leeway because you're learning as a student in college, and so are student athletes. But you can't just dismiss every standard that you set that a school expects their constituency to have.
That's what I'm saying is where is that line now drawn?
Could have been.
It's not at the same place it used to be. Yeah.
And I think it's a delicate balance where
it is.
You have to, in your mind, these are the way, and I'm being simplistic here, but this is the way I want my players to look, to sound, and to act. Now, are you being fair in your analysis in those three things, saying, well, if he looks this way, does that mean he shouldn't? Should you move that line a bit? Yes, because this is not 25 years ago. But I do think every coach has their own, I don't care, he or she, whatever the sport is, has their own set of standards. And, here's the way I want you to act.
Yeah.
And if you don't like that, I think you have to be fair, because you have to discuss acting. And maybe you open your mind when somebody comes to you and says, Coach, why do you say that? Because here's what I think. But you got to have standards. I mean, there's where I'm going with this slippery slope. I don't think in the wake of all this discussion, if you have in your mind and your program has a set of, we hear the word culture to the point where it makes you sick sometimes. Everything's culture and family, all right?
Yep.
That's the only two words we can think of. But there's certain standards within culture and family that have to be adhered to in order for you to move forward as a group. You have to be fair with them. There's the slippery slope. You have to be fair. You have to be sensitive. But at the same time, I don't think you can all of a sudden, because people are upset with you or upset with what they perceive you do, that you just throw every standard that you have for your program out in the wake of somebody not being happy with it. And it's a tough slope to be on, fellas. I'm just telling you, we can make it sound simple, but it's not. But I do think it's something coaches in this day and age now have to ride that middle line and maybe not be so militant about where they stand versus where kids want to be. But I do think there's got to be a disciplinary bottom line to all this.
And that's the hypocrisy in all this, though, as well, is the fact that from a fan standpoint, or if you're the AD and you're dealing with boosters and getting ticket seats and whatnot, their standard is winning and losing. Yeah, you don't want a whole bunch of players who are getting arrested or bringing negative light, but ultimately the fans want you to win. That's what every response to Chuba Hubbard that was negative was, shut up and play football, win us games. This is supposed to be a great season, stuff like that. That's what they care about. So then why shouldn't the coach be like, okay, well, as long as you're not going out and getting arrested, do you? Because that's the standard that's being set for athletics now. Because that's the thing is if they weren't winning football games, Gundy wouldn't be here. Most of these players wouldn't be here, and it wouldn't matter what they were wearing or what their music they were listening to.
Yeah, and you're going back on the slope again. I mean, it's not that simple a thing that this works and this doesn't work. But I firmly believe, and this is why I couldn't coach anymore. I mean, I couldn't handle this. There's no way. That would be of the caveman ilk, back in the day. But the fact is, even though you have to be a listener and you have to be sensitive to today's society, and that includes everything: poverty, social injustice, any kind of feeling that you're being held back because of the color of your skin or your last name or whatever.
Or gender.
Yeah, you have to be sensitive to that to coach in this day and age. But all I'm saying is there have to be some bedrock standards that your program has, okay? And do you have to be flexible? Yes, you have to be flexible. But I don't think you have to be, this is my opinion, but I don't think you have to come off those bedrock standards in light of somebody being pissed off at you all the time. Because there are some things that would work every year, no matter who you bring in and who leave. And if you give up some of those bedrocks, again, within the framework of the university, within the framework of the athletic department, let's face it, what do you not hear from coaches and athletic department people say, ADs, not coaches? You will not abuse your student athletes. You will not do that verbally, physically. My Lord, 25 years ago.
Mangino lost a job for that.
Night.
Yeah.
I think that the image extends a little bit here because they're also, we're student athletes. So
yes.
From athletes, you want the standard for a lot of people, is let's win or lose. We got to win. But for students, from a university standpoint, it's always student first, student first, student first. Represent the university. What happens when something negative happens with the student and the university has to put out a statement? Well, that's not representative of Oklahoma State, for instance. So you keep that in mind. That's why I think that it's kind of like you said. This is not an easy issue because you do want to be able to be that coach that allows freedom of expression, but at the same time, not give up your ability to coach.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's a great point because when you're in college, whether you're a student athlete or just a student, that's where you find your identity. That's a lot of my thinking. I can root back to a class I took or professors I talked to. The people I associated with college helped create to where I think beyond just myself and stuff like that, and the culture that I've created for myself. So that's the thing that coaches have to be careful with is, are you suppressing their ability to become the man that they want to be, not what you want them to be?
Right. Well, and that's parenting, though. I can tell you for sure.
Yeah, and a part of that, coaches take seriously is a part of it is sort of parenting or shaping.
Moms and dads will tell you that.
Yeah.
If you have kids, there's that line. Well,
shaping young men and women to become also, let's be real, those that aren't going to become professional athletes, because a lot of them won't, to be productive members of society. And part of that is being able to also uphold an image. Let's be honest. I mean, it's just like, Doug said on his show the other day with those demands, all that stuff. Well, let's talk about job interviews and things like that too. You got to be able to dress a certain way, talk a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, they get in real life slides
but that's
here.
Also part of the problem with society is there is an image of what each person's supposed to look like.
Is that fair? Probably not.
We're getting bottom line here. We're not creating an iffy situation, but and I'm not saying this was on. I don't know where Doug got his stuff, but you're not going to get many jobs that I know of. Okay. As a college graduate, when you stroll in there with your pants hanging off your ass.
And that's what I'm saying.
But I don't care how much you
just
say
because
is
you walked
good.
into the locker room, does you instantly think that he's going to walk into a board meeting room?
No. But what you do think is that if that is the case, as a coach, you would want to be able to tell your guys, hey, just you got to make sure that in different situations, you got to be mindful of the situation.
And you have to have standards.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm using a simple deal, but what if a coach said, and I've had some coaches bring this up, you're not going to travel in sweats, okay? Now, that's hard for you to believe because that's what kids do now, team sweats. Yeah. But you're not going to travel in sweats.
Yeah.
Well, is that fair? No. But a coach, in my mind, to wrap it up, a coach cannot give up his or her set of standards that they have set for their program in the interest of making their student athletes happy. They just can't do that.
Yeah.
It has to be a meeting, maybe not in the middle, but it has to be a meeting of the minds together to work out what those standards are in light of what we got right now.
When we come back, did Doug Gottlieb apologize for yesterday? Yes or yes? We'll talk about that next in the afternoon sports
Gottlieb never apologizes.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I want it, but you show me what I'm missing.
Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Jason Elmquist, and Tom Dorado with you here on a Wednesday. We'll wrap up this first hour with, Doug Gottlieb has actually been quite a bit in our radar the last couple of days. Yesterday it caused a little bit of drama on Twitter, I would say. A little bit there. I'm saying that liberally.
A lot of it.
Yeah. He talked about the demands apparently that were demanded by the players to Coach Gundy in a meeting, and apparently Gundy agreed to him, according to Doug Gottlieb.
A lot of the fact that there was 5 demands, and it was basically just about the appearance.
The demands, again, change in policy on earrings, do-rags, wave caps, the ability to sag pants, hair, and music. Music previously could not contain curse words, derogatory language towards women or race. A ton of players came out and said, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. That's not what it was. Amen went as far as to say the whole thing's not true. Others said that's not all that was said. So we were kind of like, well, what did go on?
I joked, and for those, Tom might remember this, I joked with Dion Amade. I was like, the players went full southeastern Louisiana on Doug.
Yeah, he got
And for those who don't remember, OSU beat Southeastern Louisiana 61-7 just like 4 years ago. Yeah. That's what it felt like. They just pummeled him.
He got ripped on Twitter. So much so.
In fact, somebody told him that.
Well, and he would go on to his show to claim that in fact, yes, this was told to him. He just said a source from Oklahoma State. And it continued in this tweet today, said about that tweet that we just talked about, this is a bad tweet, is what he said. I'm simply relaying what I was told. It lacks feeling in the room and the real heart of what players feel and want. I was wrong to tweet these demands without context or substance. He continued with like 3 or 4 more tweets basically telling OSU football players, hey, I'm a fan of you guys. I'm an alum as well, as you know. Your voices will be heard, will continue to be heard, all of that, and basically saying I need to make sure I have context about everything before I tweet something. He said his tweet lacked understanding of where they were coming from. It's important to give context, and I did not. I'll do better. So it's just like I think Tom, you said there over the break, and he kind of pulled a Chuba Hubbard there.
Yeah, I mean that's another example of why tweets should be outlawed, because when you throw those things out there,
outlawed. Wow.
You just simply
that's never going to happen because the president tweets, so it's never going to happen.
And I think he needs to spend more time doing what he should be doing and less tweeting. Okay, That's me, the president.
Okay,
but so I'm not being hypocritical here at all.
Yeah,
but when I heard that list, quote unquote, my first thought was, are we going to try to trivialize what just happened? Because those things could have been addressed throughout the year at the council meetings with Gundy. Are they important? I guess they could be to individuals. But when he meets with seniors, he meets with leaders in the program once a week, all these 5 things could have and maybe did come up at one time. Now, you could say, well, maybe they brought him up and Gundy didn't act on him, and that's why we are right now. That could very well be, and I don't know if that happened. But my first thought was, we're trivializing what this has to be a skimming of the surface, because that's not what I got out of Hubbard. I mean,
right.
What I got out of Hubbard,
and I think that was the problem with
Doug's, a lot deeper than this.
And I think that was the problem with Doug's tweet, and why a lot of players took offense to it, is because a lot of the reaction from OSU fan base was, well, this is all it's about. We dealt with the drama of Monday just over this
and a shirt.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's what sparked probably a lot of the backlash is because I said it on air yesterday. I was like, if those were some of the demands, I would assume those were just the tip of the iceberg. Because, again, you can come up with those in 10 minutes and not necessarily probably need to sit down for, I would assume, more than an hour to have a conversation about why you tweeted that and why everyone just was to your defense, stuff like that. I'm assuming especially because that's the thing we have to keep in mind, that earlier in the morning, before Doug's tweet came out, how Chuba actually said that he's trying to make a better community for on Oklahoma State's campus for not just his teammates, but for all black people on campus. He said his black brothers and sisters. So just demanding them being allowed to wear specific things at the locker room, that doesn't necessarily change the things on campus. So I think that was probably the biggest problem when
I saw
tweet.
His tweet there, that first one we talked about with the demands, like it didn't make sense to me that, like you said, that would be.
Have these things come up in the past?
I'm sure
probably.
They have.
Yeah.
And have they been considered and or not considered? I mean, let's be realistic here. Depending on when you brought them up and who brought them up, just because you bring them to a head coach, whoever the coach is, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to agree with you. And they can give you their version, say, well, we don't do this because this. We don't have you do this because of this. And it may go back to that set of standards you're setting. And it doesn't have to be adversarial, but I think Doug has been in this business a long time, and it's, being first is not always the best. Being right is the best. And maybe somebody told him these were demands that were given, but I got to think, if this is not giving Chuba Hubbard enough credit, if these 5 things were the only thing that caused this firestorm yesterday, and I don't believe that's true.
I think a part of Doug's hastiness too on it was that, with him having as big of a name as he does in sports talk,
right?
But in Sports Talk Radio, he is so connected to Oklahoma State that he probably almost felt like if I don't be the guy to break some sort of news here, then what's it going to look like for me? I feel like that was maybe part of his hastiness.
It still goes down to you're getting the right stuff or not.
Right. It's not right that if it wasn't, especially if he was told that there was more and he just left it out or whatever. Like that's something that you would continue a thread with. Well, here's what else was told to me.
And this was a highly charged thing here. I mean, let's face it. We weren't discussing 5 things. I want Snickers instead of Milky Ways on the snack bar.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a highly charged issue. So for you just to kind of skim it because somebody said this was done, I think was not very well done and only created even more angst, if you will.
And not only do you skim over it, but the one part that you elaborate on, you talk about that songs weren't allowed to have curse words and be derogatory towards women and race. That's what everybody jumped on. Well, then that's something they shouldn't be allowed to do anyway. It's like, well, okay, now we've totally missed out on the other things that were brought up that were important for that culture.
And that's why you saw somebody upset.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's just.
Yeah, we know what it is. He
should have learned from Cuba on Monday.
If we can get any,
that's why tweets ought to be outlawed.
Yeah, well, if we can get any lesson across, it's something that I've preached for a long time. It's don't tweet with emotion. Make sure you got your facts straight on everybody. This goes for everybody. Hour number 2 coming up next on the afternoon sports drive. Kate Cabin is joining at 4:30.
Yes, sir.
Where are they now?
Yes, sir. Where are they? And we know he's over in Bixby.
Oh, we know where he is.
Yeah.
We're going to ask where he is, though, anyways. We'll talk about, we'll get him on at 4:30. We're going to talk MLB because breaking news coming out of Major League Baseball today, and much more still to come here on the afternoon sports drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
There's only one station dedicated to Oklahoma State sports talk.
She like my futuristic sounds in the new spaceship. Futuristic if a Philip cake. She never need a man, she what a man need. So I keep on falling for her daily. We was at Coachella going crazy. Stack a couple M's like I was shady. Now I'm in Tribeca like I'm Jay-Z.
Welcome back to Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network, hour number 2. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist and Tom Dorado. Rolling right along here on Wednesday. Everybody's having a great Wednesday so far. Thanks for spending some of your time with us, hanging out a little bit. We have a ton to get to still here, and we're going to try to get to it pretty quickly because at 4:30, Tom's got a special guest on Where Are They Now, as always. Kate Cabanis will join.
Got lots of things to ask Kate,
a lot.
Really.
This is actually a great time for him because there's a ton of stuff going on, including what we're going to talk about now with Major League Baseball. There's been a lot of times where the proposals have come out, and I've just been like, well, here we go again. Not really feeling that confident about it. But this one, maybe, just maybe, we are going to have some sort of baseball here. What also is I find comical now about all this is the owners saying at one time, we're done talking. Well, then they kept talking. The players saying, we're done talking. Well, then they kept talking.
Well, there's one common denominator is the money.
It's like, why even say that? But they did. Major League Baseball proposed, a new proposal here to the MLBPA. Would begin on July 19th, the season would, with 60 games, 10 off days there. 60 games in 70 days. Could be up to 65. Is what they are expecting further talks will result in. But why is this not just another proposal? Well, because Rob Manfred and Tony Clark, who represents the players, actually got together, talked for a long time, several hours according to them. This is from Manfred. He said, quote, "At my request, Tony Clark and I met for several hours yesterday in Phoenix. He left that meeting with a jointly developed framework that we agreed could form the basis of an agreement and subject to conversations with our respective constituents. I summarized that framework numerous times in the meeting and sent Tony a written summary today." So a lot of them are running with this. A lot of MLB writers saying that this is, we're getting word that this is going to happen. This is looking pretty solid here. The big thing as well, players receiving full prorated salaries during these 65 games.
For both of you guys, what do you think would be the one hang-up at this point now from the player side? The amount of games played?
Well, I think they're getting probably on the plus side there, because when you're talking about 45 or 50, which Manfred could have dictated,
right.
it's in his purview to say, okay, this is over. Well, this back and forth is over. We're playing 40 games. Get on out there and play. Because there would have been litigation. There would have been, we probably would never play. But I don't know. There'll be some players who won't want to play 65 games.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure there will be too many more hang-ups. But if they can get it to 65, to them, maybe that's a win. 5 more games. Also expanded playoffs here, which we didn't mention. They got to take that as a win. I mean, the players
Expanding to what? Well, what is the expansion?
From 10 to 16 teams. So you're also that and for 2 years here.
Right.
So if you're the players, you're basically like we won this thing.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about like we got the victory here. And
I think the only hang up from the player side that I could see is the whole 60 and 70 days, because that essentially kind of falls in line with trying to get done by the middle of September.
Yeah, which is
and
the
they're
goal.
wanting to
Yes.
go and the players are fine with going into potentially a November season.
they may reconstruct that a little bit because they're still sticking by we got to get this done before the end of October.
Because that's only 10 days off.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's almost like, can we burn through? Let's we're not talking 160 games here. We're talking 60 games. Let's burn through 60 games in 70 days.
Yeah.
And maybe the players are like, you know what? If that means we get to play and compete for a World Series, fine.
Because I'd be curious, and maybe overnight we can look it up.
Yeah.
But I'm curious in a 70-game window in a regular season, in previous years, how many days off they would normally get.
Yeah, if it's consistent with
Right. So like if it's saying if you're normally in a 70-day window, they were only getting let's say 13 or 14 days off. And it's like, okay, it makes sense. You're looking at a similar window as you normally would.
I don't think it's really that different, honestly. I mean, because when you look at 162 games and the amount of days that they end up playing, there's not a lot of off days. I mean, it's basically every day. We know right now.
Usually the off days are travel days.
We know right now.
The playoff thing, though, was not – I don't think there was anything within a 60 to 70-day period. I mean, they got Mondays off as they got down the line, and they had travel day. They didn't have to play when they came back from the coast the next day like they used to have to do. And those things were built into contracts. I don't really know how. I mean, yes, we'll have the games. All right, how? Are we gonna have games? Are we gonna have guys wearing masks all day long? Are we gonna have nobody in the stands? I don't think that makes any difference to ESPN because they just can't wait to get that first game on, no matter what.
Yeah, probably no fans unless you're in Houston. I mean, Texas said that they would be able to have fans unless more states ease up on restrictions. For instance, also NASCAR, when they're doing their race in Tennessee coming up, is allowing 30,000 fans to come back.
Okay.
Wow.
So that the news I was going to share yesterday didn't get to it, but that's a significant advance in that as well.
And again, I know we're talking baseball, but I just saw a tweet from Jesse Newell, who we've had on the show before, covers KU athletics for the Kansas City Star, just tweeted out that that they've been forwarded an email from Jeff Long to donors and whatnot, that they're actually right now projecting that they're going to be allowed to have anywhere between 50% to 100% capacity for football games, which again,
so that means they'll get about 10,000 people,
that's pushing
right?
a lot. But in theory, honestly, I mean, if anybody might benefit from all this craziness is a program like that, who's you can play to the hey, you're desperate for sports, you can come watch
that
it
is
here.
Almost laughable.
This barely counts as sports, but
that is interesting. The fact that up in Kansas, because I've said on this show that they've kind of been behind the ball when it comes to reopening and all this other stuff, and now they're saying that basically the government's potentially saying that they could have anywhere between 50 to 100% capacity allowed in the stadium.
They could all come in one gate.
But they with the caveat of they won't have a final decision until August, early August, as I'm sure a lot of places will have. But it's interesting to hear because we heard from Texas's governor over the weekend that he doesn't see any way that it goes over 50% for stadiums, and here you have someone within the Big 12 conference now saying that it could be over 50% for their university. university.
Yeah, my prediction was that we would see some universities that would possibly get up to 100%. I mean, with some restrictions and guidelines, put that in air quotes, but so I'm not really that. I mean, Kansas maybe I'm a little surprised at, but I think we're going to see fans in the stands in college football at pretty much everywhere.
It's also easy to say that when you know you're never going to reach 50%.
Yeah, exactly. That does help. That does help.
Like I said, you may be between 8,000 and 10,000. Maybe.
But I mean, that honestly, that brings an interesting question. Let's say if Oklahoma State was as bad as Kansas, and you haven't had sports for the past 6 months, would that drive you to go to those games?
Yeah. I mean, I would think so for a lot of people.
A lot of
at least at the beginning, right?
It'll still be not the last minute decision, but we're talking about another month before anybody can stand tall and say, this is what we're going to do. I mean, all these numbers sound great.
Yeah.
But if the state of Texas, for instance, continues to turn in 2,000, 3,000 a day that are infected by this, then Abbott may have to come off that number a little bit. I don't know if he will, but he might have to down in the state of Texas. So I think each team, now the pros are different. They can dictate what they want and what they don't want. But the colleges, again, they have to be a lot more sensitive to the general student population, and we're taking care of people's parents are taking, we'll take care of your kids, parents, and we want to make sure everything's safe. Thus, we have to make sure that going to a football game is safe.
Yeah. To end our baseball discussion here, we'll take an early break.
I'm glad they're going to have 16th. Why don't we? Is this going to be like the local Little League World Series or Little League league they have in Stillwater, where everybody gets a participation trophy?
Yeah, we might be at that point.
Everybody gets to the playoffs.
It's still to me for Major League Baseball as a whole, it's still a loss. Like they blew it this whole time, like big time. Like they can come back, and that's great. And I'm happy that they're coming back. Well, this isn't official, but looks like it's getting close. Yeah. But my goodness, they still blew it.
Is it really going to be enjoyable? I mean, while we're talking about watching terrible teams, is it really going to be enjoyable watching a postseason where, again, if you go back to last year, with adding 3 to each division or each conference, you're looking at teams that had losing records last year.
Yeah, I was never a fan of expanded playoffs in baseball.
Yeah,
because
I didn't like it either.
Yeah, there's too many teams that absolutely, first of all, should just never be in there, because it's not like, to me, there's not a lot of this possible underdog situation like you have in some other sports. Football's different. Basketball can be different, but baseball, let's be honest, we're
playing. At 162, you are who you are.
Yeah, we know that usually too. Sometimes halfway through the season. So if now that's what's going to be interesting. You get a 65-game season. Well, some teams don't even hit their peak till.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, most managers would tell you, and I've had them on air here tell you, it takes us 30 to 35 games on a 162-game basis.
Yeah.
To figure out which lineup looks best.
Right, exactly.
Who can play, who can do this, who can do this. Now, that would be half of your season.
Tom, I thought you'd be excited for this because based on last year's standings, the Mets would have been in the playoffs.
Hey,
still didn't deserve it.
I'm for anything that gets the Mets in postseason. And if it's just like you got to win one game, that's all what happened, you're in. That's fine with me.
Oh, boy. Poor Mets. We will come back, take an early break here to squeeze in time for Where Are They Now. We'll come back and discuss a little bit about the NBA released a 113-page plan to Disney World. 113 pages. As you all know, I definitely sat down and read every single one last night and brought some information to you. So we'll talk about that next in the afternoon Sports Drive. Welcome back to the afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Tom Dorado, Jason Elmquist, and Journey with you as we continue. This is, I wasn't joking when I teased this coming out of that last segment. The NBA gave guidelines for coming into Disney World and playing. That it was 113 pages long. I really don't know, like, how that was possible. I guess that they might have used smaller than advertised pages. Like, I can't imagine. And I read quite a bit of it. I'm not gonna lie. I'd probably spend more time on it than I would care to admit. These are the points right here. So here's some stuff that's gonna be available to players. Okay. a chef, and a 24-hour food room for each team, as well as room service. Barbers and manicurists available by appointment. Pools, trails, golf courses. A lounge with video games, card tables, movie screenings, ping pong tables. Mental health services. Guest rooms for player families after the first round of the playoffs. And the option for a limited number of players to attend other games as spectators. So those are your...
Woe is me.
Yeah.
Woe is me.
Do you get where I'm coming from now when I went off on the NBA the other day and said, you big crybabies, acting like it's a big deal to play in a bubble?
And
Come on.
And apparently some people have made a big fuss about the fact that agents won't be allowed there. And they're being pampered.
24-hour room service.
They're being treated better than they are in their home.
That's what I said. This is better than they ever were treated.
They're getting treated better than Michael Jordan in Utah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if only there would have been 24-hour room service for Jordan.
You'd wonder
Then we
how
never would have had
anybody
a
would turn
pizza
this
game.
down.
Well,
This sounds like
and that's the thing.
a big vacation.
Yeah, exactly right. A summer vacation. And if they do turn it down, which apparently some still, well, they said before this they don't want to play. Kyrie Irving, for instance. If you said we don't want to play, they have to let the NBA know by June 24th. But here's a couple of other things you guys got to know about this. There's going to be an anonymous, as I like to call it, snitch line, but an anonymous tip line that players can call, or anybody can call if they see other players breaking coronavirus regulations.
Wow.
So who's going to be the first player to
Snitches
snitch?
get stitches, man, though.
Wow.
Snitches get
It's
stitches.
supposed to be anonymous. That one cracked me up
Who are you gonna
because
call the commissioner?
yeah, that's comedy gold right there. I've already seen so many great takes. A lot of them have been about Chris Paul or LeBron saying I see Kyrie over there.
Yeah.
Or I see Kawhi over there.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things I've
Gotta
seen.
get that competitive edge.
One of the funniest things I've seen is, we all know it's no secret. It's been made public everywhere. A lot of NBA players enjoy the strip club. How do they get the groupies and the ladies
they bring
into
them
the
in?
bubble?
To the bubble?
They're gonna find a way, right? I mean,
Louisville found a way to do it.
I mean, it's not impossible. Here's the other thing.
I'll be here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Here's the other thing. When you play ping pong, no doubles are allowed
jeez.
in ping pong.
Really?
This is a real guideline.
Social distancing.
Social distancing.
Yep.
Singles only. So it is. It is really something that we have to. And when I saw these guidelines, I was like, these are making me laugh way too much to take seriously. And unfortunately, I was able to really not. And I'm not lying about the whole. And another thing I didn't say. The last thing I'll say here before we go and we get to our where are they now. When they're going to play with cards, they can't use the same cards more than once. Those cards are gone after the hands have touched them. This is ridiculous, Jason.
I mean, they're protecting the players.
They are
protecting the players. And that's been the concern.
It has. And they were concerned about it. It's almost like, seriously, this is what we're going to give you. Like, you asked for it.
Yeah.
I just cannot believe, because we have to remember too, it's going to be going on while there are people at Disney World next door.
I'm gonna be curious how much money is spent on decks of cards
on alone.
Yeah,
and ping pong
cards,
paddles and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll take a break.